How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Pokemon HeartGold. This is going to be a little bit of an interesting project. I'm going to go ahead and get started here so we can get through all the hoo-ha, and you also don't have to sit and wait for me to go through all the beginning prologue tutorial stuff here. So, for those who do not watch my live streams, first of all, you should. Second of all, you already know that we actually played this yesterday, believe it or not. I'm going to move that game window up slightly. There we go. I probably need to move chat window as well. Yep. Perfect. If you've been watching my streams recently, you know that Icarus and I have started doing our verses for Pokemon HeartGold and Pokemon SoulSilver. If you haven't seen those, the TLDR is basically, in order to have her play all the previous gens of Pokemon, we play both at the same time, be it the actual original copy of the game or, you know, the sort of spiritual successor slash remake of the game. So, of course, HeartGold, SoulSilver, because while I do love the original Gold, Silver, Crystal, and Pokemon Silver was, in fact, my first video game ever, having the updated, you know, everything, basically, on HeartGold, SoulSilver just kind of does lend itself to ultimately being probably the superior version as a whole. Don't hate me if you're a fan and saying that. Bear in mind, that's coming from somebody who loves the original as well. But in doing that, of course, we are showing both my screen and her screen at the same time. Now, I do have actual hardware. That's actually what I'm playing on right now, is a DS capture board. So I'm playing on an original DS right now. And Icarus was playing that last night on her copy, which would have been SoulSilver. However, since that means that I was playing on emulation, which we knew going in, because that was the only way for us to effectively show all four screens, going in, what that meant, of course, was that if I wanted to actually, like, battle or trade or do anything like that, it just simply wasn't going to be a possibility. It's emulation, it's not the actual hardware. You technically can do it, but it's kind of a mess and probably honestly more trouble than it's worth. But, you know, that's kind of neither here nor there. But regardless, because I do ultimately want to be trading things over and the like and using the actual hardware, that of course means if I play on emulation, I need to have a second file in which I'm playing the game proper, which is the one you're seeing right now. I'm not sure if I'm going to show every single session of this on screen, but I did want to show some of it to show, like, hey, if we ever do more projects in the future other than Mario Baseball, we could do DS stuff. It's totally a possibility. It is entirely a thing that we can do. I am very quickly, though, going to switch my windows here, because that bottom screen that I'm trying to click and drag over is ultimately the one that we want to see more. I don't know what the dying seal sounds are outside from people that are in the pool today, but there are dying seals outside, otherwise known as children and or teenagers. Maybe adults. Hard to tell. The other day I could have sworn there was like like 2 or 3 dogs outside. Sounded exactly like dogs. Nope. Small children. So that's a thing that exists. Alright, let's take a little peek inside Elm's place here. So, what you'll be seeing in this playthrough is, of course, not only me going through the game as a whole. It'll be a little bit more walkthrough, but not, like, heavily. This is a more relaxed one since I'm streaming it, even though it is on the main channel. But if you see any of these streams where I'm going live with just HeartGold, then that means you can come and watch me play this live, and the chat window is actually accessible. The chat window is that top right part of the screen where it's black currently, so if anybody pops in chat, we'll see, but it is early in the afternoon on a Friday, so if we've got people that are over on the east side of the world, they might be available, but for the US, they've probably still got a couple more hours of school or work. Once we get to the current team, you'll start seeing Pokemon pop up at the bottom as for what I'm using for my current team. As you'll be seeing very shortly here, because I'm about to choose one of my Pokemon. Before I do that, though, the first thing I want to do is go to options and change some of this stuff. Predominantly changing that window to purple, changing the text speed to fast, and changing the battle thing to off so we're not seeing all the animations. Secondly, while it probably ultimately won't matter, there is a small, and I do mean small, potential for me to do a reset for one particular thing on my first Pokemon here, like I did in the actual project, and that's just going for the correct gender that I want, which is male. I actually ended up with a female one multiple times while trying to play through the game on the other one, which was a bit weird, but that was what happened. And while I'm not going to go for necessarily an ideal nature here, as we can always just breed for a better one later, and I did get a male one, that's good. If I get something in particular that just doesn't really fit that well, I might reset for that as well, but we'll see once we get out of this screen here. I've always wondered why they don't let you, like, whenever you're on the nicknaming thing of like, oh hey, now you can just, while you're on this nickname thing, see your nature as well. So I know some people that actually do base their names based on the nature of their Pokemon, where you can get, you know, something like sassy is very different from gentle, is very different from relaxed, that type of thing. What are we looking at here for a nature? We're looking at gentle nature. Yeah, that's ultimately probably one that I am gonna reset for. If wild is any nature, gentle is not it. You also now get to see... Oh, no, it's actually not going to pop up here. Yeah, it kind of will. There we go. If that window didn't look like HeartGold and SoulSilver, I also agree with you. I thought initially when I put it in, because on the window for what game it shows for the DS, it shows like some SpongeBob game, and I was like, oh, great, got ripped off, cool. I owned SoulSilver when it was new, so it wasn't a big deal to just use the copy that I already had. I already transferred over everything from my original file that I'd ever want, so that one wasn't a big deal, but I did have to get an actual copy of HeartGold, so that part was a bit of an issue, but it appears to be running fine. I did bite the bullet and buy, yes, another copy of HeartGold, so for whatever reason, the trading is just not a thing that I can do for whatever reason, then I will have a backup copy, hopefully, that will not have that problem, but we'll see as time goes on here. Alright, Elm, let me get out of here. It's so easy to use. Yeah, what would be even easier to use is my feet to find the way to the exit of your building. Alright, what are we looking at here? Docile nature. Again, that does not really fit my particular Pokemon here. I'm not going for an ideal nature because, again, if you're wondering how the whole... Yeah, there you go. There's the SpongeBob Atlantis Squarepantis from THQ, which is not the game that it is here. So if you're wondering, like, oh, well, wouldn't you be cheating by resetting for the ideal nature if you're doing this for your beginning one? Yes and no. The big thing is, because initially on the file that you're seeing for Versus, I'm playing on emulation, I'd have to play a second copy on hardware regardless, and to get every single Pokemon at the exact same IVs, exact same natures, would be an insane amount of effort. Way, way too much effort. So, the rule set in place for Versus is that while you've got your team that you're going through in the main story and playing through, breeding to get better natures, better IVs for both players is totally valid, because otherwise I would have an unfair advantage just going into there anyway, so it's thankfully not a big deal in the end if I'm resetting for these. We're all good on that front. I'm definitely not going to be doing anything like shiny hunting, though, so if you were looking for that, I suggest Tom Fox, who's hunting for a shiny Quagsire in Pokemon Coliseum, and is not had any luck yet, but he'll get there. He'll get there. Alright, Cyndaquil, let's see if we can be third time lucky here. Careful nature. Again, no, that is not what we're looking for. Of course, the problem is just a lot of the natures in this game don't really fit his that well. So at least my Cyndaquil, or really Quilava in particular, is like a serious, no-nonsense, like, Stuff like relaxed or docile, those natures just don't fit at all. Probably the natures that would fit the most in terms of what gives you a buff would probably be physical attack, honestly. Which I know is typically very bad for a Cyndaquil, but... let's see here. Maybe we'll get third time lucky. If I get one that's, as long as it's not like, again, overly opposite what I'm looking for, it'll be fine. So as you've been reading multiple times through the text, what we're supposed to be doing here is going and finding Impish. You know what? That could kind of work. Mischievous. Yeah, it's close enough. That's close enough. What is an Impish nature in Pokemon? I actually don't know the natures that well, so I would be curious to look that up. Let's find out real quick. Impish nature is... oh, that's actively bad. Yeah, I'm gonna have to reset for that one too. That doesn't work, because that's minus special attack and plus defense. And defense is nice, don't get me wrong. In fact, I think most optimal natures are usually minus attack or minus special attack, depending on if you want to be a special attacker or physical attacker, respectively. Because if you're going with all specials, you don't need physical. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Having a high defense is always good. It doesn't matter if it's physical or special or both, because you're probably going to be getting hit with both as you play through the game. But I don't want to sacrifice especially special attack in favor of defense. That's probably the one stat I ultimately wouldn't want to sacrifice is special attack. Even if I had to sacrifice physical attack for special, it would be a little rough at the very beginning. But the moment that I got Ember on Cyndaquil, we would be pretty much set. And since it's very obvious that I'll be choosing Cyndaquil for my starter here, the way that this works in our Versus games, again, for those that have not watched, is through each gen we swap these roles, but one person gets to pick what Pokemon game they want to play, and then the other person that did not get to choose will get to choose what starter to pick first. So in the first game, I picked Fire Red as the game that I wanted to play. My gosh, I'm not having good luck here. I picked Fire Red as the game I wanted to play, so that meant that Icarus got first choice in starters. So she chose Squirtle, and I chose Charmander. Going through this series, however, she got to pick which game that she wanted to play first, so she chose SoulSilver, so that means that I'm, of course, playing HeartGold, as you see right now. But since I didn't get to pick which of the two games I played, that means I got to choose my starter first, so I went with, of course, the first Pokemon that I've ever owned, Cyndaquil, which I still have on my Battle Revolution file. It is still the exact same one. It is unsurprisingly full of nothing but fire-type moves because I first played it when I was very, very young and did not know any better. But I feel like that's the case for probably everybody. It's regardless of what starter you picked. If you played when you were really young, you gave it all fire moves, all water moves, all grass moves. You like status effects, so I don't need those. But you could have a 100% chance to put your opponent to sleep. Nah, that would never come in handy. But yeah, it actually would. It would come in handy a lot. But yes, as you can see on the bottom screen, we've got that current team on the very bottom left. So, go ahead and put a little boy there. I will change those as time goes on. I do have 2 of them set. No, I actually think I have 3 set for going just straight on here. Alright, can we have a little bit of luck here? So there shouldn't be any need to be having me stop for too long, and man, not having any luck here. Careful, I'm assuming careful's probably a defensive nature, isn't it? Yeah, and decreases special attack. Man, why is it always gotta be something that decreases special attack? We don't have to do that. You can always just give me something that helps a special attack. Let's see, what are the plus special attacks? Modest, mild, bashful, rash, and quiet. I mean, rash is probably the one of those 5 that would fit the most. Modest, maybe. And of course, there's always the natures that don't have any plus or minus to them. When I do find a proper one that I like here, I'll be sure to. I probably won't pause in the middle of doing this to show it off, because we've already wasted more than enough time here. Just trying to get the right nature. But I might throw it into the little IV calculator just to see exactly how good or bad it is in all of its stats. But we'll see. It's weird to see myself keep getting a male Cyndaquil over and over, because I think I only reset like 4 times for it last night in the emulator, and 2 out of those 4 times I got a female. And I'm like, I thought this was supposed to be a, like, what is it, a 1 in 4 or 1 in 8 chance? I mean, I know that doesn't mean that it can't possibly happen 50% of the time, but it's kind of crazy that it did. Docile nature. Man! Alright. It's gonna be one of those, I see. So when this goes onto YouTube, I might actually bite the bullet and do like the, hey, break this into 15-minute episodes, potentially. We'll kind of see. I wish they had the option to break it into like 30-minute episodes. I feel like 30 would be a lot more reasonable. If you're doing a longer game that's an RPG like Pokemon, like an hour feels like a lot, and 15 minutes doesn't really feel like enough, but I feel like half an hour is a pretty good buffer there. Yeah, we'll give a name to the Cyndaquil. I'm waiting to inevitably, like, keep resetting and accidentally hitting no, and it will have turned out, even though we'll never know for sure, that that was actually a proper nature and the proper gender, too, that I'm looking for here. Mr. Pokemon goes everywhere and finds rarities. Does he find Sweetie Bells as well? Probably not. Lonely nature. You know, that actually does kind of make sense, but is it something I can use? Increases attack, decreases defense. You know what? That actually fits pretty well. Like, Lonely, I wouldn't really call him Lonely as a character, but upping attack and decreasing defense makes sense because he is kind of a glass cannon style character. I'm going to check very quickly. Highly persistent means... There we go. Highly persistent. Means that his highest stat is defense. Interesting. Well, like, not counting the nature. His highest one is defense. Huh. Interesting. Well, we'll see how he does. I will accept that, and also spare you all the agony of continuing to watch me just reset over and over. I will consider that an acceptable Cyndaquil. Let's get out of here. But first, we must be stopped by a man with a lot of hair to counteract for the Pokemon professor whose hair is already starting to go. I talked about this in the verses as well. I find it a bit odd that, like, Elm is the professor here, obviously. Like, he's the one that gives you your starter Pokemon. Yet you meet Oak very soon after. Oak is also the one that's, like, in the little intro package of, like, hey, welcome to Pokemon, you know, like, literally the beginning of a game when you start a new file. Why is it not Elm? Is there a particular reason? Like, did they just have that little faith that Elm would be an interesting character? I feel like he's the one that I do remember the least of the first 3 gens. I remember Birch pretty well, But I also played Sapphire a lot. Like, I got into Silver. I think I beat it. I definitely beat it the one time, obviously, hence why I still have the Typhlosion that I had back then. And then I think I might have, after I traded, played through it one more time. And then, of course, I've done SoulSilver and beat it, so this is like my 4th playthrough. But I've played through Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald a lot. Like, it's definitely over 10 playthroughs on that game for sure. So, I do remember Birch as a result more than Elm in particular. Speaking of Elm, he's like a weird case. Like, even in his sprite, it's like, he looks like he's like 25 and 45 at the exact same time. Like, he's kind of got the little hair spike thing going on that, like, some characters do, but at the same time, you know, he's kind of going bald. I mean, he could be 25 and going bald. I don't know. I've got a bunch of cousins that are, so it's entirely possible. I don't think that if there is any item, we'll go back for it later. Alright, the battles. In terms of the battles and what I'm going to do here, I will probably be doing most battles unless it's a case of me going through an area... Oh, right, I need to turn all those settings off. If it's me going through an area where I just don't have any, like, types or moves to really deal with what's there, so think, like, I don't have any specials or super effective moves to going through an area where there's a lot of Geodude or something like that, then I might run away from battles, but as a whole, I'm going to try to keep them in. And the big reason for that, of course, is because in going through my practice file, because I did practice to make sure that the emulator worked and whatnot, and I got all the way to the Elite Four, and was very underleveled for the Elite Four, which was weird, because I didn't have any trouble with the gym leaders and whatnot. It was a bit strange, but for whatever reason... I was very underleveled. I was probably about maybe 10 levels too low. 10 levels lower than they were, for sure. So obviously I want to minimize that happening. I was running from a fair few battles. I don't feel like it was a lot, but also that practice file was now 2 different files ago, so it's also just possible I don't remember. I think I turned the text speed up and then, yeah, well, because the animations are going on, it didn't confirm it. That was my mistake. This is also slightly different, too, because now we're playing in the daytime. When we streamed this last night, it was, of course, night, and since this game has a day-night mechanic, most of the nighttime Pokemon are potentially still going to be out at this point, but they'll definitely be out in less amount than they were before. Alright, confirm. There we go. I'm not going to go over there for that Apricorn because I know I can't pick it up right now anyway because I don't have the container to pick it up. And now, thankfully and mercifully, we can put everybody's worry to rest because after this guy is done talking, we can get the running shoes and actually start going at a reasonable speed. For those that didn't play Gen 2, first of all, you really should. This is probably somehow, despite the very high popularity of HeartGold, SoulSilver, this is, I think, what most people consider to be one of, if not the best, remakes of the original. And just the game itself is really good, too. It's good about not taking too terribly long to give you key items like the running shoes where you can go pretty dang quickly. After you get out of the starting area, you really don't get interrupted anymore. The only time that you get interrupted where you have to deal with it is something of like, oh, you get a call from the professor, but it's a story beat, so you would have to do it. But it's not a case of, oh, hey, yeah, we're just going to waste your time with like 45 minutes of showing you specifically how to do contests, and now you have to participate in a contest. Which is a nice little touch, I feel. It's a very underrated thing, but it's very much appreciated that you don't have to necessarily do everything. If you just want to do the main story, or do the main story and come back for it later, you can just do that. It's A lot of stuff in this game that is very much appreciated. Having the day-night cycle is a really nice feature. I know that's a little bit annoying to some people, I'm sure, but of course you can always change your DS clock if you really need to get, you know, the evolutions you need, or to find stuff more easily, depending on what time of day it is, or when you're capable of being able to play the game. But even so, that's a really nice touch that one would not expect from an early gen of Pokemon. It sounds like something that would come up in maybe Gen 4 or 5, but nope, it's been around since Gen 2. Even the original games had it. This came out in 2010, even though you've been watching the intro multiple times. So, by comparison... Oh, I figured that guy was a trainer, but he was not. So by comparison, this game is... it was out post Gen 4. Diamond and Pearl would have been out by that point. And now we have the Apricorn box, which is very nice. You'll be able to carry the Apricorns. More importantly, I'll tell you what they actually do in case you are not aware. The Apricorns, which you've seen in these little trees right here, potentially, there's several different colors of these. Green, black, yellow, pink, white, red, I think. There may not be a red one, but all the other ones I listed definitely exist. And you'll be able to take these to a guy in a relatively early town once a day, and you can only give him one color of Apricorn at any given time, but in terms of that, as long as they're the same color, you can give him as many as you've got. So if you've got 30 red Apricorns, you can give him 30, and he'll make them into different custom Pokeballs that you'll be able to pick up the next day. These are all ones of things like, if you catch a Pokemon, it will make it more friendly towards you, or these will work better on a Pokemon that weighs more, things like that. So it's a nice way of being able to consistently get custom Pokeballs and not necessarily have to shell out an arm and a leg for it. Every single Apricorn tree will give you a new Apricorn after the next day rolls over. I don't remember if it's a 24-hour type of thing or if it's just literally the following day, but either way, they're not too terribly hard to come across. It's just one of those things if you just check it periodically and they'll be there. So I feel like 2010 in particular, like that very much was a time of starting to see games, even really, I guess, to some degree, phone apps of just getting used to checking it throughout the day, and that's all it is. It's, at least for games like that, it's not so much a game you play as more as you're just like a sort of a watcher slash passerby, but in this case, it's just one mechanic in the game that's like that, rather than the whole thing. So it's a nice little sort of nod to that, even though it probably wasn't intentionally done that way. But now we've gotten to Mr. Pokemon with his generic-looking sprite and his generic-looking hat. And he gives us an egg, which is pretty typical for most Pokemon games. At some point down the line, you'll be given an egg and be like, hey, you should hatch this egg and see what comes of it. In Gen 3, it would be a why not, but I'll leave it a mystery as what it is for right now. But what I won't leave as a mystery is if I'm using it on my team or not. The answer is no. I'm not going to be using it on my team. How would you like to help me out? Yeah, he's going to give you the Pokedex. See what I mean, though? Like, you meet him pretty early. Now, granted, we wasted, like, a solid, probably 15 minutes just resetting for a Cyndaquil that worked. But even with that 15 minutes, it's still only been half an hour since we started. So when I say you meet him pretty early, I'm not kidding. And there's Elm on the Pokegear. Normally you have to actually properly go down to your menu. Either tap it or hit X and go to the menu to find it. But if it's a call that's a story beat, like with the one we just saw from Professor Elm, it'll just automatically force you to answer that call. Having good luck of not running into any encounters, but here's the thing, I actually kind of want to run into some encounters and level up a little bit here. Because we're about to get into a rival battle pretty soon here, and I would like to get at least one more level before that occurs. Probably two, but we'll see. There we go, now we've got the proper screen colors, I can see. It's weird, on the actual DS itself, it looks like kind of a grayish purple, honestly. It's much more vibrant on the screen that y'all are seeing compared to mine. It looks very, very odd in that regard. I'm not used to seeing it look like that. All these Pidgeys and no Pokeballs to catch them, but that's alright. I wasn't planning on keeping a Pidgey on my team anyway. As the little thing on the bottom says, HM users are not counted, because obviously you're going to expect to see some of those. But if it is on that team, it is referring to a team that I will be using in, like, actual proper versus matches against Icarus and using in combat as well. The only time you would see an HM slave out is if I'm sacrificing them to get a turn to probably heal or revive one of my other Pokemon, or heal a status effect or something like that. When doing the verses, we do have a fair few rules set in place. Most of them are set in place for me to give me a little bit of a handicap. And one of the handicaps that we have in verses is, since this is the second season, quote-unquote, that nobody is allowed to reuse Pokemon on their team that they have already used. So, in that case, it means for Icarus that she cannot use Gyarados, Jolteon, or Blastoise, or one of the other 3 hidden ones that she's chosen that I don't know about, but regardless, she's not allowed to pick those ones again. And the same holds true for me, meaning that I'm not allowed to use Charizard, Gengar, Jolteon, or any of the other 3 that I chose that are also hidden as well. I'm not able to use those in this playthrough for Gen 2. The other caveat for me in particular is I am only allowed to use Pokemon from Gen 2, with a slight exception. The exception is it needs to be the final form of a Pokemon that is from Gen 2. So if it's something that got an additional evolution in Gen 2, then those are totally fair game. So if you see something on there going, oh, that's Gen 1, you're cheating, you're a little cheater, no. Nice try, but no. Because bear in mind, the Gen 2 Pokedex is actually pretty small, especially by comparison to Gen 1. So by doing this, it'll give me a little bit more room to make an actually solid team. If we didn't allow me to do any of that, think about how many Pokemon that were, like, initially from this, of, like, I would never use a Pichu, like, Final Form Pichu, but, like, Pichu is in this game, and everyone thinks that Pichu is from Gen 1 when it's not. So there'd be so many Pokemon that would have pre-evolutions and additional evolutions and happiness evolutions and that type of thing. All those Pokemon would probably not be allowed, and then I would have a very small pool from which to pick. So this gives me a little bit more variety. And in saying that, yes, as one might expect, that does mean that there will be at least one Pokemon on my team that will continue to miss tackle, and will also be initially a Gen 1 Pokemon, but it will change into a Gen 2 later on. Got that a little close, but we're okay. I think we're gonna be alright at level 8, personally. So let's head back to the town. It is worth noting that I don't remember if this is the first game. This is a game where it can occur. I don't remember if Gen 1 does it, but even the original Gold, Silver, Crystal made this a thing. Of course, you have the ability to run, which makes you move faster, but should you run in the tall grass, it does make it more likely that you will get ambushed by Pokemon. So if you're trying to go quickly through an area without a repel, when you get to the grass, you might actually want to try to walk through it at normal speed. It's not a guarantee or anything, but I feel like it's pretty truthful in that regard. I feel like I make it probably about a third to half, like, and on top of it, I make it an additional third plus 1/2 of whatever distance I was going to make it in walking versus running. And now we've got our rival, which of course will have the Pokemon starter that you are weak to. That he just, like, literally up and stole from the... We're just gonna kind of pass over that, glance over that. Yeah, he just outright stole it from Elm. I don't know how he got in there and took it, but he did. So just when you think Gary is the biggest dick in terms of being a rival, well, there you go. At least Gary didn't actively steal his Pokemon from his own... his own grandfather. He did get it proper. Yep, you're gonna be the world's greatest. Yeah, you sure are, bud. But he appears to have dropped something. Give it back. That's my trainer card. Oh no, you saw my name. Don't worry, there's no lag or anything. That was just me going through that slowly because the text speed was fast. We'll grab that. another green one. The green ones probably are the ones that I would recommend when you first get to that town of using, but you'll also probably have green the most, or tied for the most in terms of color, of which apricorn you've got, because you've got 2 already right now if you've been picking every single one up. Also, I just realized, unless he healed me after that fight, he didn't damage me at all, did he? Unless I went back and healed and also forgot. It's been like a weird 24 hours, and as a result, there's been like a lot going on, so paying attention is not too terribly high on my mind. Alright. We're back. And we're back just in time to get interrogated by the police, a la Mario Sunshine. Thankfully, they're not quite as stupid as the police in that game. That's still, like, one of my favorite, like, I know it's a Mario game, but how could you possibly be that stupid moments of them putting Mario in jail. It's so bad. It's so bad. But it's, like, it's funny bad. It's funny bad. Alright. We'll do lowercase for him. Why not? Canonically, your rival's name in this game is Silver. In the original game, I think technically it's Blue, but I'm pretty sure, like, almost everybody calls him Gary if you go with a default name, which I feel is completely fair. But we'll go with Silver. While I'm not obviously keeping a 1-to-1 ratio with the file you'll be seeing on Versus, I'll keep most things as similar as I possibly can. But now you got the mystery egg, which will be sent back to me at a later date, once we get past the first gym, but for now there's nothing I can do about it. Also, this, again, goes back to, I guess they didn't have much faith in Elm, because Oak gave you the Pokedex, and he was like, Elm was stunned that he gave you the Pokedex. Like, it makes it sound like you couldn't have gotten it from him? Like, either he didn't have it, or he wasn't considered a quote-unquote good enough professor to give it to you. Like, something's up there, man. I don't know. Is this like a professor in training or something? Alright. Do you want me to save your money for you? Yes. Alright. So, when saving money with Mom, this basically means that every time that you win prize money, that number will be cut in half, and the other half will be sent to Mom. And you can withdraw this money at any time. However, every now and again, you'll get a call from your mom, and she'll basically say, like, hey, I found an item for you that I thought might be helpful, so I used your money to buy it, which I don't know what your mom's definition of saving money is, but that is the opposite of saving money. So, yeah, a bit interesting on that. But the good news is she can get you a lot of items that you would not otherwise normally be able to find very easily. Most of these are different berries, but every now and again you'll get stuff like super potions, which are common items, but you might get items from her that are supposed to be stuff that you would consistently get much later in the game, but you're getting it much earlier. Think like finding a hyper potion after clearing the second gym type of thing, where you're clearly not supposed to have access to it at that point, but every now and again you can find those items in the actual game, so it's one of those other opportunities as well. I don't feel like most of the time, unless you just really want to stock up heavily on everything, and you're focusing on catching everything on every single route the minute you come across it, most of the time I don't see money really being a problem in this game. So honestly, you should probably be okay to do that. If you're somebody that's having difficulty and, like, you consistently have difficulty having enough money, you might consider not saving with Mom, but it also might be an argument for saving, because if you do that, then of course you'll have some on hand. If you remember it's there, you can just go, oh right, I actually do have a bunch of money elsewhere. But then the key is to go and not spend all your money from your mom as well. So your mileage may vary on how useful or not useful it is. Ultimately, I tell most people, yeah, go ahead and do it, personally. I like getting the extra items on occasion, even if it is fun to make fun of Mom for just being like a very lucrative spender, because I've had times where she would call me telling me that she spent my money on an item. I would take 3 steps, go into a house, and then she would call me again telling me that she bought another item and spent my money. And it's just like, girl, you need to stop. You've got like a trigger finger here with that credit card that I gave you. I'm just ready to swipe it or tap it or insert the little chip that's in it. I guess swiping credit cards isn't really a thing that we do anymore. I feel like a fair few people still use the chip, right? Like, I still use the chip. I don't, like, tap it on the screen or anything like that. But then again, maybe I'm a little bit old-fashioned. After all, I am playing a game that's 14 years old. So, who can really say? I don't really need to heal here. I think we would be fine to go through the next route with no problem, but just for the sake of doing it. I gotta take care of my boy. Come back again anytime. I'll bear that in mind. As you've also clearly seen, you can walk around with your Pokemon in this game, because this was the, Well, I don't think you actually could initially do it in Gold, Silver, Crystal. Maybe you couldn't, I've forgotten, but I don't think you could. This was something that started popping up in sort of the, I guess now technically, mid-series. I mean, this is like between 4 and 5, and we're on Gen 9, so mid-series of Pokemon, where you could actually do this. And by having your Pokemon walk around with you, it actually does increase their friendship. So if you're looking for happiness points, this is a good way to do it. It also gives you the chance for them to find items every now and again, where it'll say that they're holding something, and they'll give it to you. So it's sort of like having pickup for an ability on whatever Pokemon that you currently have out at the time. Nice little thing to keep in mind is just to interact with them every now and again and see if they've got something for you. They also will potentially change how they respond, so if they're low on health or if they've been hit with a status ailment, it'll say they're like weak or they're kind of like looking dizzy and disoriented, that type of thing. Whereas if they're at higher health, of course, they'll typically be in like good spirits or looking around a lot or enjoying the scenery or looking at you, that type of thing. Yeah, you do that quick attack. And gone. Probably won't be enough for a level. No, not quite. That's alright. I'm out of Pokemon that can fight. Yep, because it's hard to fight. And much like with the actual characters like we've seen with Elm and your mom and whatnot, you will also be able to... You can also say no to these people, but people every now and again will say, hey, I'd like to get your number. These guys are largely useless. It's mostly letting you know, every now and again a trainer will be like, hey, I found this item that you might want, and then you have to go remember where they are, which you're probably best off looking that up of where they are to go find them. Or maybe to refight them, but they're probably not going to be too terribly strong, so them having the item is probably the best you can hope for. How good or bad those items are ultimately is going to kind of be left up to chance, but I would imagine that typically the answer is probably not that great. But who can say for sure? If we tried to come through here earlier, we would have noticed that these two trainers, the one that I beat and the one that I'm in the process of defeating right now, would have been blocking the path, so we would have had to go to Mr. Pokemon's house. We couldn't have taken this path. And the one we just defeated was the one that won that battle, and what's really sad about that is probably having... Yeah, he just said it on one before. It was probably that 2-level Pidgey that made the difference, because the 2 Rattatas they had were both the same level. So that was probably the deciding factor, and that's a little bit sad. Instead of bug Pokemon, I found a trainer. You sure did. You sure did there, Chief. And instead of bug Pokemon, I found a pile of ashes, since I just set it on fire. Yeah, the starter Pokemon in this game, in terms of how well they do starting off, have a very interesting trajectory. I would argue that, unlike the first gen where your fire pick was probably the hardest of the 3, at least in terms of challenging the first gym in this game is a flying gym, which means, of course, that your grass type will be the one that's going to be the hardest one to use successfully. However, like with most games, there are a fair few grass Pokemon, and you can go through a lot of grass areas, or areas where there are grass Pokemon. So think like, you know, the forests and stuff like that. So I think probably ultimately, Cyndaquil likely is the easiest starter, at least at the very beginning of the game. He is also the fastest to evolve, because this is, I think, the only gen, at least as of when I'm recording this, where the starter Pokemon don't have their first evolution all at the same level. They're actually all different. Cyndaquil's is at 14, Chikorita's, I believe, is at 16, and Totodile's is at 18. So, a bit weird that they kind of changed it up, but I actually kind of like that it's different. It's a nice little change of pace, and they're not so radically different that it's going to be like the make or break of, oh, this is going to change 15 levels down the line. It's like, it's only 2, it's not that big a deal. So I actually kind of appreciate that they like took the time to change it up as little as it was. I do appreciate it. Speaking of appreciation, though, it is time for me to catch a Pokemon if I can run into it here. I think there's only 2 Pokemon that you can run into in this cave here. At least on the first floor, but we'll see here. Thankfully, like in the case of most games, we were given a couple Pokeballs to start out. I'm not going to go over how to catch a Pokemon. If you're watching this, you already know. Lower its health, inflict it with the status ailment if you can, and those will increase your chances, as well as using Pokeballs with higher catch rates. Alright, we've got a Zubat. I'm not going to give a nickname to Zubat, as I don't really have a strong connection with it like I do Cyndaquil. I would have put one on my my Gengar in the first game, but I ultimately decided not to. So, we'll stick with that for now. I do have a couple in Gen 4 I have in mind. There's one in Gen 3 I have in mind, but unfortunately I will not be picking my starter first, and I think that means that I will probably not be getting that Pokemon in question. I don't think it will happen. Which means I've got to choose between the 2 that'll be remaining, which will actually be an interesting choice, because I don't think Gen 3 really has a bad or, like, inferior starter. I think they're all pretty good choices, largely. Since he rose his defense, I'm going to hit him one more time here. Oh, I could probably hit him 2 more times. I don't really need to drop him that low, ultimately. He's only level 3. Which is weird, because I could have sworn everything on this first level was only level 2, because when I was in the cave in the Versus, I was in here for a while, and all I saw was level 2 on the Geodude and the Zubat. I didn't see anything else, so to see a level 4 was a bit surprising. A welcome surprise, but still surprising. Alright, so that's Geodude and Zubat taken care of, which, as you can see, I've not added them. Or have I? Yep, I just did it. I just put a Zubat on my team. And not just the HM Slave team, I'm talking the actual one. The Geodude will, of course, be used for things like Strength, Rock Smash, etc. So I will not be adding Geodude, and even if I wanted to, I couldn't, as it is not a Gen 1 Pokemon. Or not a Gen 2 Pokemon, rather, in its final stage. So it wouldn't be an option regardless. However, the final stage of Zubat, what's now the new final stage of Zubat, absolutely is. So it is an option. So, yep, I'm going to do it. Of course, those that know how you evolve Zubat's final evolution also know that it is a happiness evolution, and so what that means is that you'll probably be seeing it a fair bit at the front of my party, trying to work on increasing its happiness. Working on leveling it as well, but the predominant focus for the time being is going to be on having Zubat out in the front and then swapping it out for Cyndaquil/Quilava. And the reason for that is Zubat doesn't really get a good attacking move for a fair amount of time. It's really not until it gets Bite that it's got something that's actually genuinely pretty strong. I could probably take this guy out, but, like, as you can see, all that we got here is Leech Life. I'll give it an attempt to see how much it does, but, like, that ain't much, Chief. So, ultimately, it would just be faster to just switch out, quickly kill it with Wild, and just move on to the next Pokemon. So that is what I will be focusing on doing. Once it gets Bite, it'll be in a perfectly fine situation. It will get Wing Attack pretty quickly after that, and at that point, it'll be completely usable and without having to switch it out constantly. So, it'll be a little bit of babying for a while, but not too terribly long. We played up to the point where I had just beaten the second gym in our verses, and by that point he was completely viable, so it's not too terribly long. Yeah, you tackle for that 1 damage. Show him who's boss. Of course, this is going to make it to where the experience for Cyndaquil is a little bit lower, but also these are only level 2 bugs, so I wasn't really expecting them to give a lot of experience. Oh, excuse me, a level 3 bug. How dare I encroach upon such territory of calling you as to be so weak as to be a level 2. Don't worry, I'm sure you'll survive that Ember attack from something that's almost, what, that would be almost 4 times as strong. But bear in mind, it is important to do these in these trainer fights, though, because the Pokemon that are held by trainers do give more experience. So even with these puny little ones, he's already over halfway, or she's already over halfway. I will probably make that mistake a fair bit. I'm used to having a predominantly male team of Pokemon, just because most of the time when I get Pokemon, I seem to run into the male ones, or I pick ones where the male-female imbalance is typically weighed in favor of the male, like with the starters, for example. I think I have had a team of all females before, and I think, oddly enough, it might have actually been Colosseum, Pokemon Colosseum, which gives you Umbreon and Espeon for your starters, and I think I got female on both of them on one run-through. Yeah, you can have my phone number, sure. I should just do a run where I'm super mean to everybody and just never give my phone number out to anybody other than who's absolutely required and nothing else. A wild Bellsprout appeared. It is worth noting that if you are planning on very early on giving Flash to a Pokemon that's early game, this is probably going to be the one you pick. This is one of the very few that at this point in the game can learn Flash. The upside about that is, unlike a lot of games, Flash is not a TM, or not an HM in this game, it's a TM. But even though it is a TM and that means it's single use, you can buy these in the stores. They're supersonic, which is okay, I guess. You probably won't see me use that hardly ever, but we have it. But that said, and this is important if you're playing along, Flash is not required to beat through the Elite Four of this game. It's not required at all. It is completely optional. It's used for 3 caves in the game, and none of them are required caves to go through in the main story. So if you want to save Flash for a later date, then that's totally fair. Go for it. There is no particular reason for you to get rid of it now when you can just hang on to it and wait for a later date. The one cave we were just in is the one of those 3 caves, for the record. But as you can see, we can clearly progress to the next city without needing to use that. Hello again. How'd you get past me? What, were you in the cave or something? Like, of course, there's no way to actually find her, but I guess you could assume that she was, like, way down in the cave. You don't really see your, like, quote-unquote friend all that much, and as far as I remember, you don't really battle her either. She's just kind of there. I know sometimes the friend and the rival character are both one and the same, and sometimes they're not. Like for Black and White, for example, Charon's kind of your rival, and Bianca's kind of your friend, but you battle them both. Even though Charon's probably the superior of the two. Because he's more focused on actually beating all the gyms, and Bianca's more focused on, like, the contest, the exploration bit. But yes, now we are in the very aptly titled Violet City. How fitting for somebody who's got that in their name. There's a little bit we can do here. The first thing I would recommend that you do is probably going through Bellsprout Tower here just to the north. Or just Sprout Tower, rather. It's full of trainers with Bellsprout, hence why it's called that. If you're using Cyndaquil, this should be a very easy area to get through, as, like I said, everybody uses Bellsprout, and so as a result, they're all going to get destroyed by Ember if you've got it at this point, which you probably should have it at this point. If you're using Chikorita, I mean, it's going to be a decently even fight. You'll probably just use your Tackle or Scratch or whatever you've got, Pound. Any of those basic starting attacks that they give you should work fine. If you're using your Totodile, however, if you picked Totodile for your starter, this might be one of those moments where you need to switch into another Pokemon just because you're going to be having type disadvantage going up the entire tower. Now, granted, you're going to be much higher level than them by this point. But if they manage to get off a single Vine Whip in every single fight, like, it'll start chipping away at you there. So, you do have to keep an eye on it. Luckily for me, that's not too terribly much of a problem here. Just keep on tagging out here. It's weird to have, like, a team of 3 already even before the first gym. It's always the part that feels the strangest, and yet at the same time, usually when I play Gen 3, because again, that's the one I've played the most, typically I have a full team by this point. It's not a team I'm using for combat, but I usually... The minute that I get the opportunity, the first thing I do is fill up my team with Zigzagoons on top of whatever starter I have, and just make sure they've got pickup for their ability for all of them, and just keep raking in those items. But of course, that's not the case here. Because I think at this point, there's a fair few Pokemon you could find. You could find a Bellsprout, a Rattata, a Hoot, a Sentret, a Geodude, a Zubat. There's definitely options that will make this much more bearable. If you're looking for something that's going to be good against the gym, honestly, and I think somebody even tells you this, is they say, like, oh, well, go look in the cave that you passed earlier. There's a Pokemon in there that should be pretty good. They're referring to Geodude because of its rock moves working well on flying. And because flying just doesn't tend to do a lot of damage to ground types, it means defensively they'll be able to hold their own. So, definitely an option if you're not too terribly confident. I'm going to run from that fight just because I don't want to waste time. I gotta get to the stairs, man. I gotta do it. I gotta climb those stairs. I gotta get that important item. Oh, Paralyze Heal. Well, it could have been worse. It could have been an X item. I'm sure there's somebody out there that really loves those X items. I'm not one of those people. If I find an X item, I think, oh, cool, I'll be sure to sell that the next opportunity I get. I just don't prefer to waste my turn using an item like that to, like, highly increase whatever. I'd rather have the Swords Dance or whatever move is necessary to up whatever stat I find necessary. And typically, if you're playing, like, actual competitive, be it, like, you know, proper tournament or playing against, you know, friends on a trade or whatever, usually items aren't allowed, either by the game or it's just a house rule or both. So, those would be out of contention anyway. Switch it on up again. What are we doing on level 6 over here? Oh, we just got here. It's not too terribly much. Don't worry, soon enough you'll get Bite. Bite's got, for reference's sake, to determine... Like, Bite's not exactly the most OP move that's ever existed. I'm not saying that by any stretch. But Bite has 60 power. The next highest move you would have on Zubat, at least through its natural level up, not giving it anything, would be Astonish, which is 30 and a Ghost-type move, so it doesn't work on normal types. So it's literally double the damage of that in terms of its base power. Yes, let's go ahead and switch. And if you look really quickly here, Poison Flying, when you get Wing Attack, which is also 60 power, that means not only getting the 60 power, you're getting same type attack bonus. on top of that, so it's a nice little plus. So Bite will definitely tide you over, provided that you're fighting something that just works with Bite, as long as it's not something strong against that. It'll work fine till you get Wing Attack, and then Wing Attack can do its job quite well. Poison moves back in the day were a little harder to come by in terms of what were really good in terms of damage. I think probably nowadays probably the best poison move, at least I think at this current time, most people consider is probably things like Toxic, badly poisoning the enemy, things like that, but finding a physical damaging move is a little bit harder. So if you are playing the original Gen 2 rather than the remake where more options are available, if you're looking for Zubat for a poison type, maybe avoid that. If you're going for like a flying and dark, that's going to be a little bit more viable, so just bear that in mind. I do definitely want to give Zubat some poison moves, at least one, something that will be decently viable, because I do want to try to get a pretty good spread of moves here, and I know at least through natural leveling up, I think of the 3 that I plan on using that I'll be showing, Zubat's actually going to get the most diverse move pool of the 3. Cyndaquil typically sticks to either normal or fire, regardless if it's a Quilava or a Typhlosion. It's got other stuff that it can learn, sure, but this is pretty much what you're going to be seeing, is mostly fire and normal for quite a while. Even when I got up to the very last gym, because I was making sure not to use my TMs unless I could buy another one of that. I still had Quick Attack at that point on my Cyndaquil. Now, granted, I had Lava Plume and Flamethrower as well, and I think Smokescreen was the last one I kept, but I still had Quick Attack even to that point. Alright, let's get that Bellsprout. This is like number 10 in this area. These aren't typically very high-level Pokemon, as you can see. The gym is going to have higher-level stuff, so this is where you'd want to go first to get those extra few levels that might be the difference between surviving and not surviving. I'll go ahead and let you in on the quote-unquote little secret of how strong the gym leader is. The gym leader's highest level Pokemon is 13, so that should give you an idea of about where roughly you should be. I in particular want to try to be very careful to not lose Cyndaquil, though, because if I do, then of course that puts Zubat out into the fray, and losing Zubat in battle means that it will lose friendship points, and I don't want that to happen. So trying to avoid feigning with Zubat as much as I can, so if I had to choose between making one of the 2 faint, it probably unfortunately would be Cyndaquil between the 2, as it is not a friendship evolution. But ideally, we won't have any of them faint, but, I mean, that's always the ideal, isn't it? Fantasy is not always reality. Speaking of reality, reality shows there's a lot of bald guys up here, otherwise known as sages. I guess you have to shave your head to become a sage. Well, like, I have a kind of shaved head. It's like probably a shaved head that's started to grow your hair back, but not quite, or done like a military crew cut type of thing. That used to be how my hair looked growing up, was military crew cuts. Because that was what my dad wanted my hair to look like, and so that's what it looked like. And he would not hear otherwise from me or from my mom until I was allowed to grow it out, I think at around... And by grow it out, I mean, like, not even extremely long. We're talking, like, how you would expect a normal, like, boyish haircut to look. Think how it looks in, like, Scarlet and Violet, like the default male haircut, like roughly like that, except a little bit shorter. And of course, the minute that I grew it out long, all 3 of us, in particular he, was like, yeah, we should have just let you grow out your hair. That was dumb. Like, why did we do that? So, let that be a lesson to parents when it comes to kids wanting to, like, grow their hair out, or, like, boys wanting to grow their hair out slightly. Provided that it's, like, within the school's dress code, like, it's not actively going to cause a problem. Like, they don't have to have their head practically shaved every time they're getting their haircuts. I don't really think that's an issue anymore, but growing up it definitely was, because bear in mind that would have been the late 90s and early aughts. So thankfully, again, not too big of an issue anymore. I think nowadays it's just like, yeah, provided that, you know, at worst, quote-unquote worst, most parents are like, as long as your hair is not in your face and I don't get a call from your school about your hair, then, like, you're fine. Which seems reasonable to me. I don't know if school regulation is always reasonable, but parents saying as long as it's under those criteria is fine. I do always enjoy having in the background all the different, like, small videos. Like, I tend to avoid the clickbaity stuff, but one of my favorite ones that I genuinely do like hearing, even if it's not real, is all the ones of, like, my school's dress code is absolutely stupid, and so I just found every loophole possible to get through their regulations and guidelines. So it'd be like, oh, well, you're required to have a belt, but they don't say, like, what type of belt it has to be. They just call a belt, like, anything that you can tie around your waist. And so they'll bring, like, a rope or something like that, like a chain. Something that, you know, clearly is not an actual belt, but for the intents and purposes it is. That was always worth a laugh. We got Zubat up to level 8, but tragically, again, still no bite for a little while. We're nearly about to evolve Cyndaquil here. We're not too terribly far away. As it's about to get to level 13, and then it will only need one more. Very nice. Yeah, I don't know how those look in terms of IVs and EVs, but like in terms of like high attack, high special attack, and good speed, so I'm not disappointed with any of those. Quick attack, yeah, it's time to get rid of tackle, I think. Leer probably will not be too terribly far behind. I do like having Smokescreen to just stall when I'm trying to catch something of, I don't want to damage it, but I don't want to waste a Pokeball, so I'll just keep lowering its accuracy over and over. So Smokescreen will probably stay for a little bit, but we'll see. Should you be playing along and you are choosing a Cyndaquil, I do recommend that at bare minimum, if you're going to be predominantly using your Cyndaquil in the gym, you probably do want it evolved into a Quilava by the time that you actually get to the gym leader. We've still got this guy up here to fight as well as the gym trainer, so I think we'll get to that point. But, like, 14 is absolute minimum. If you want, like, a safer number, I would say probably 16. 16 should be plenty. And 15, of course, is in between those, so it's a perfectly fine number, but I'm sure professionals will be like, no, you can do this at like 10, no sweat, no problem. But that's my personal recommendation, is somewhere between 14 and 16. It'll be easier the higher you go, of course, but 14 and 16 is a good point. I always kind of appreciate that this guy just, like, right after Silver's done beating him, and he's like, hey, you should treat your Pokemon better. And he kind of just tells the Elder off. Like, he doesn't even think twice about it. He just talks to the next guy, because he's just polite like that, you know? He just focuses his attention on the next person that's come here to train, to come here to learn. And knowing that probably deep down that the next person that's coming here, because it's quote-unquote not typical of most characters in Pokemon to treat their Pokemon badly. So, you know, he just expects the trainer to have a good bond with their Pokemon, even if they are a new trainer. So, ever the professional, he just happily waits for your challenge. He healed up his Pokemon pretty quick, too. I'll give him that. I mean, that was, like, less than 10 seconds. He probably waited for me to get that escape rope and then just used a bunch of revives and potions to get him back. Oh no, I fell asleep. I don't think I have anything to cure that right now. I don't. So we'll just smile through the pain. Sadly, this is not Final Fantasy, where if you get hit with a physical attack, you just immediately wake up. So we're gonna have to sit here through about 4 to 5 turns of this. Yep. Oh, critical hit! Oh, that's so nice for you. It would be a shame if I were to completely undo your work. And now that is turn 5, so it can't last any longer. I've never been a fan of those, like, lasts or hits for anything that's like 2 to 5 turns, because every time you use it, it will hit twice or last for 2 turns, and if your opponent uses it, it's going to last the full durability every single time. It's doubly annoying if you keep the animations on for things like Bullet Seed, because you're just sitting there like, yes, yes, you hit me again, well done. Oh, and another, and it's just, ugh, it's so obnoxious. Yep, raise that special attack. We'll see what you can do with it. And there we go. Zubat grew to level 9. Learned Astonish. So we'll give it a slight bit of variety, but ultimately, again, I wouldn't see it partaking in much combat just yet. There is one area where you can level it up decently well. That will be coming up pretty soon, and it'll be against an area where there's only, like, low-level Psychic Pokemon, which Bug and Ghost are good against. With both of those types, they're both good against Psychic. So, if you're looking for a place to train one, that's not a bad spot to start. We haven't talked about it, but as you've seen, there's clearly some Pokemon in the tower. Rattata primarily during the daytime, I think maybe technically only during the daytime. At nighttime, you can find Ghastly here as well. So if you're looking for a ghost type, that could be a spot to start. Very nice. Still got some gym trainers here, but I should go back to dealing with every encounter proper to make sure I get that experience. I could use the escape rope to get out of here, I know, but again, because I'm okay with fighting battles for the time being, that means that I will not be using the escape rope too much. And thankfully, pretty much all of the dungeons slash caves, whatever you want to call them, none of them are really that big, at least going from one end of it to the other, not doing like a full exploration once you've gotten all the stuff necessary and come back, but most of the caves are not very big. You can get through them pretty quickly, so you might have to deal with maybe, I don't know, 20 wild encounters as opposed to maybe closer to like 70 or 80 that might be expected of bigger areas. Even Victory Road isn't that long. So if you're worried about, in particular in the caves, if you're that type of person like, oh, I get lost in these areas easily, I'm not a big fan of them, I don't like dealing with all the encounters, they're pretty short for that reason, and as a result, you won't have to deal with many encounters, and of course you can always put up a rappel, and because the routes are small, that means you won't be using as many to get through. Which I actually do appreciate, because Gen 1s, they had a couple that were like decent length ones, and then in Gen 3 there were a couple that were like pretty large sized areas, so I think probably as a whole 2 has the smallest dungeons, at least in terms of getting from the start to the Elite Four and only doing what is required. These are probably some of the shorter ones. Alright, Violet City Gym. As you can see, you've got little platforms on the side, so if you want to skip the trainers, the gym trainers, you could just do that. I don't recommend you do it, but yeah, you could totally skip the trainers if you wanted to. I mean, you might go to the gym leader and they might be like, hey, you didn't talk to all the trainers and beat them in here. You have to beat them before I'll consider you a challenge. It's possible, but I always tackle every single trainer, so I wouldn't know for sure. The attack missed. I don't actually remember how accurate Fury Attack is. It's obviously not 100% since it missed. That's one of the reasons I swapped out Tackle for Quick Attack. It wasn't just the priority and the damage, it's also that Tackle has a chance to miss, and anything less than 100% for me means that I'll be missing more often than I'd like. Yeah, I think I'm going to bump up... Well, it'll be Quilava by that point. I think I'm going to bump Quilava up one more level outside of the gym. I think I'll get him to 15. The other possibility, of course, is if your Pokemon gets knocked into low health, but you know you can still win with them overall, is to do the dishonorable thing, quote-unquote, of just catching until your team's full and just using them as meat shields to heal up your actually strong Pokemon. Of just swap out for a weak one, let the weak one die, throw out a second weak one, heal your Pokemon in a turn and let that weak one die, and then all of a sudden you brought back your strongest one at full health, and there you go. It's quote-unquote dishonorable, but let's be honest, we've all done it at least once. Even if I wanted to use Astonish on you, I don't think I can, because Pidgey is flying in normal, I think, so that means that it would not work. So instead, we'll go with the tried and true, and we'll burn Pidgey to slowly damage it a little bit further. Yep, and that will do it. That'll take us to 14. Which of course now means Cyndaquil, or Wild in this case, is evolving. I'll probably go back and forth between calling them the name I gave them and the canonical one. And there we go. Very nice. I'm not even going to bother healing, because there's not really much reason to. He's not at that low a level. Or low health, rather. Unfortunately, I don't think anything in the grass here is going to be too particularly strong. Anything? Zubat is holding something. Would you like to take it? Yes. What do you got? Oh, it seems too important to let go. Oh, well, you can keep it then. You evolved through happiness, so I don't want to make you mad. Alright, let's take a look here. These are probably going to, I'm going to guess around somewhere between 2 and 5. Yeah, that's what it's looking like. We'll see how long it would take to get a level, roughly, and if this is looking like the experience bar is not going up anywhere. Yeah, I'll look around a little bit more. If the average is 3, maybe. If I'm seeing level 2s in here, though, we'll probably just bite the bullet. Well, there's a 4. In terms of going for Pokedex, maybe for the heck of it, and I mean literally just for the heck of it. There's no real reward for doing this. If you'd like to know what the reward for doing the full Pokedex in this game is, which is about 400-ish Pokemon for doing National, because remember this has some Gen 3 and 4 Pokemon in it too, you get, and I quote, a diploma for the National Dex, a diploma for the Johto Dex, and a star on your trainer card. That's it. That's all you get. So if you were looking for like an actual Pokemon or something as a prize, no, you don't. So you don't get it, so don't bother. But if you were to work on the Pokedex, especially if you wanted to do it early on, of course, going for the Caterpie line is a very safe and easy thing to do, as it will evolve once at level 7, even though you just saw level 5 in the wild. They will usually evolve at level 7 into Metapod, and then again into Butterfree at level 10. And if you find a Weedle, it'll be the same levels to get it to Kakuna and then Beedrill. So it's a very quick way to get a full evolution line there. It's pretty much the only upside that Pokemon like that have, is they'll get like the final form stat boosts extremely quickly, because they'll get there very quickly. I've definitely wanted to, because I've looked into the future, pretty much up through Gen 4 of, like, getting a basic idea, not a full-scale idea, of what I would want all of my teams to look like as a whole. And of all the types, Bug was one of the hardest to be like, I want to find a good Bug type to put on at least one of my teams. It was not easy to find one that just really, really gelled, for sure. I definitely think it's one of the harder types. It's not like there's no good Bug types out there, but it feels like they're much more limited than, say, like, fire, electric, flying, ice, water, ground. Like, almost every other type, when you think of them, like, oh, what's a good, like, dragon type? You can think of multiple directly off the top of your head. You can think of multiple good fire types, multiple good dark types. Almost every other type, you can think of multiple. And when you think of bugs, you're like, I think I can think of maybe, like, 2 or 3. And even the ones that you think of that are really good definitely still have some, like, glowing weaknesses. Typically being 4x weak to something, usually fire or flying. Yeah, there are some good ones out there, but man, you have to look a little bit. You have to look a little bit to find the right ones for you. Can definitely be a bit more tricky to use. Which I like, though, because even just amidst their type, just on the sort of nature of what moves they can and can't learn, both through leveling up and what they can learn through TM, means that, like, insects should be kind of a tricky one to deal with. Kind of like how in the old school one, stuff like Poison and Dark was really tricky to deal with. If you were going for raw offense, physical or special, you probably didn't use Dark type, because the strongest move you had at the time was Bite/Crunch, Crunch later on. But there wasn't anything that hit, like, Fire Blast hard. So as a result, you kind of had to figure out a different way around things, which I do like. I like that a lot, actually. As a kid, I wouldn't have thought twice of, like, oh, that just means it's a bad type. No, it just means that, like, a raw offensive strategy is not the way to go for this type. And as a whole, it's not always the best way to go. There are definitely other strategies that are just as helpful. And hopefully in this playthrough, be it this one or the Versus one, I hope to show that off with my 3rd team member. Possibly 4th. But we'll see as time goes on. Speaking of time going on, though, we should only need one more fight, and then it will be time to take on the gym leader after a quick heal. It is worth noting, I don't have it pulled up right now, but there is a page online. It's not anything fancy, but it seemed to be pretty accurate when I looked at it. That shows, hey, if your Pokemon are in this range, level-wise, this would be a good spot for you to level. So it's got a range for, like, levels 1 to 3, 3 to 6, 5 to 8, that type of thing, where it'll give you a pretty good estimate of where you should go. So if you're not sure where the optimal spot to train is, and it may not be optimal just due to the types of Pokemon that are in the area they recommend, but level-wise, it seemed to be pretty good. So do give that a search if need be. Alright, if I recall correctly, I'm going to check this house real quick, I don't think there's anything in here, but if I recall correctly, one of the big... I'll trade it for my Onix. That would be a very good way to get Onix, honestly, because of Onix's not great catch rate. But I don't have a Bellsprout, and I'm not going to worry about it for the time being. I might trade that guy later, just for saying that I did. Check around here quickly, just see if there's anything else. I don't think there is, but we'll do a quick check. Oh, for nicknames. Alright, what did she nickname it? Strawberry. Okay, that's actually kind of cute. I was like, as long as you don't name it, like, I don't know, Croissant. Battle Gym Leader? I did not. Oh, are you just gonna show me where it is? I already know that, dude. Oh, you're gonna show me to the trainer school. Yeah. Unless you're actually going to give me an item for coming in here, I'm not going to bother. Yeah, we already all know all this. I'm just seeing if he's giving me an item. Because some of the trainer schools actually do give you one. In Gen 3, you get the Quick Claw from talking to the guy at the front. Okay, well, that's it. I do remember checking my practice file to see if there's anything else there, and there's not. I thought he might take me to the tower and be like, oh, you should go level there, which we already did, so... Anyway, as I was saying, one of the things that helps increase Pokemon happiness is winning against a gym leader. It doesn't even have to be the one that does the final blow or anything like that, but... I'm going to save here real quick, so hopefully I will not lose a Zubat in this fight. But I do want it to be part of that fight just to get that extra boost of happiness for sure. Of course, this won't come into play until it's evolved into a into a Golbat. But theoretically, once it gets to Golbat, it will get one more level and just immediately, like that, evolve into Crobat, which would be nice. But we'll see what happens. Yeah, even Faulkner's lower level Pokemon is matching Zubat, so I definitely don't want to make an attempt there. Alright, good start. Very good start. I'm not going to switch. I could give it more experience, but I think having the extra turn to attack rather than sacrificing while taking some damage is probably the better choice between the two. The most annoying thing that this guy can really do, yeah, is doing that, of roosting constantly to bring his Pidgeotto's health back up. But if you can get him in a spot like this, where you knock him from, like, 2/3 to 1/3, and you get to go first, then he probably did try to use Roost there, and ultimately it just didn't work, because he didn't get a chance to use it. And we get a bunch of experience for that, because not only was it a trainer fight, but it was also a Pokemon that has evolved once. And we get the Zephyr Badge from Faulkner. Very nice. 1 down, 7 to go. Pokemon traded in level 20 or up will obey. You can also use Rock Smash at any time, which we'll be picking up very, very shortly, actually. He gives you Roost. It restores half of the max HP. Probably won't be using that, but thanks. So our next stop for a gym will be Azalea Town, but before that, how about a phone call? Remember, I literally played this less than 12 hours ago, so I know what's coming up. Well, not less than 12 hours ago, but less than 24. So yep, right when you leave, you'll be called by Elm and saying, hey, you should go to the Violet City Pokemart. As when you get there, this guy will be here and he will give you the egg that you traded off earlier. Thankfully, unlike some eggs that have been given to you in the series, this one doesn't take too terribly long to hatch. In fact, when we were doing the run yesterday, I had moved enough to get it to hatch. So it doesn't take too terribly long. So if it bothers you of having the egg in your party of taking up that space, but you also want to hatch the egg, good news, it won't take too long to hatch. I'm going to very quickly buy a couple things from this guy. Namely, I just try to keep 3 of all these status removals on me, except for a few that are just less frequent. But for paralysis, sleep, and poison, I try to keep 3. Any chance I remember to. As for burn and freeze, basically never. They give you enough escape ropes in the game, and I'm going to avoid trying to use repels. For potion, I'll grab 2. Only really Wild is going to be able to make use of these, and otherwise they're a full heal. I guess we'll take some of these just for saying we did. I don't envision myself catching anything in the immediate future. But as somebody did rightly point out in chat last night, in case there is a shiny that randomly comes up, it might be worth having a few on hand. It's truly an important egg. Don't worry, I will take good care to hatch it and then throw it in the PC, and it will probably never be seen again unless I decide to evolve it for the Pokedex. But other than that, it's fine. Alright, let's move on from Violet City to Route 36. And if you talk to this guy right here, have you had trouble with the boulder blocking way? Of course you have. There's an HM that will come to your rescue. Obtain the HM06. And that will give you Rock Smash. Like I said, we were going to get it very, very soon. You can technically pick this up before the gym if you want, but fighting is not a strong move against flying. So if you're planning on using it in the gym for, like, an attack, would suggest looking elsewhere, I believe, is the very polite way to say it. It's also not very strong. It's only got 40 power, so we're not talking anything insane here. But we'll give it to Geodude, and now we'll be able to break boulders. And I am going to go back and break one that was in Violet City very quickly, because it drops a very good item that we'll probably not need for quite a while, but it would be nice to have it in case of very bad emergencies. This game is a weird case of, like, there's some backtracking if you want to pick up stuff as soon as it's available, but almost none of it's mandatory, and even for what is mandatory... Oh, a yellow shard. Nice. Even what is mandatory is... like, you usually have fly by that point, so it's not the big deal. Yes, that hyper potion is what I was looking for. The yellow shard was a nice little bonus. Sometimes when breaking things with Rock Smash, you'll run into items that will drop. You can also run into Pokemon. It's typically a Geodude. But the items are a nice little surprise as well, so I will approve of that. It is worth noting, if you want to leave Azalea Town and not do this next section, you can just go to, like, the south part where there's a little dirt pathway, and you can skip this upcoming section that I'm about to do, but it's a pretty short section. It's also the section where you can level up your Zubat if you want to, so bear that in mind. Yep, the Ruins of Alph. Again, this is a totally optional area. You could also literally just run right past and through it if you wanted to. But I'll at the very least solve the puzzle. I'm not going to stick around here for an eternity or anything, but we'll see if we can find anything in the rocks. And there's a couple items here that are very easy to grab, so I would recommend getting those. Ah, there we go. I was waiting to see if a Geodude was going to pop up, and sure enough, there one is. Ooh, he's a strong boy, too. If that's the case, I was expecting him to be, you know, about, like, 4, 5, 6, maybe. I was not expecting 14. Not mad or disappointed, just very surprised. I might actually try to run from you. If I had the type advantage with, Croconaw / Totodile, I would have easily been able to take him down, but since that wasn't the case, we'll just heal up real quick. Just do the old double potion. I'd rather save the better ones for battle. There we go. I'm curious to see if we can get any more shards. I didn't get any shards in the verses, but when I did a practice run, I did get a shard in one of these. I think it was a blue one. And what do we got? Another yellow shard. All right. There was one guy in Violet City. He was standing right next to the Pokemon Center that will trade 3 of the same shard color for something. I don't remember what it was, though. I know in a lot of Pokemon games, they usually let you trade those for evolution stones. Water, fire, leaf, and thunder. But I can't say for sure here. This is a pretty easy puzzle here. You just have to rotate these into the right spot. I don't have a stylus, so I'm doing this with my finger, which is why it's a little bit awkward. There we go. It's only got 4 pieces. It's not too terribly hard. But once you get that, it'll drop you down to this area right here. There's no items, but there is one Pokemon in here, which it'll probably show you right now. Yep, the unowned reports. This is where you can capture them. So, if you want to, you can. He's just going to leave to go wherever it is he's going. And since we've got Zubat in the front, we're good to go. I probably won't stick around here for too long, but like I said, with Unknowns being Psychic type, and these are all the same level at level 5, this is a very, very good spot to train your Zubat if necessary, because both Leech Life and Astonish are strong against Psychic types. So as a result, you'll be able to get through these guys pretty quickly. Unknown don't really have that high a speed, and Zubat's actually got pretty good speed. So as a result, you're typically going to go first unless you're several levels lower than they are. So definitely a prime opportunity to train one up here for sure. Anything really with a bug move or a ghost move would work here. If you're needing to train your Ghastly from the Sprout Tower, this is another good spot. This is the same spot that is good for another Pokemon in terms of for them. For the Unknowns, pretty much all they have is just one move, which is Hidden Power, which will vary based on the Pokemon itself, as in the ID of the Pokemon, not, oh, they're all Unknowns, so they all have the same type for it. So it might be super effective against you, it might be not very effective against you, it might not work at all against you. It just kind of varies, but the good news is, since we're primarily using Astonish, as it is the stronger of the two moves I've got on Zubat, there's always the chance that they'll just flinch instead. And because he's at low health, we'll use a Leech Life to get a little bit of health back and not waste the power point of Astonish. It is nice that it feels like largely, not all of them, but like largely every single Pokemon you get early also has a good grinding spot for that Pokemon relatively early. We've already clearly seen it with the 2 examples here, but having Geodude do well against the trainers with bird Pokemon, be it the ones that are in the gym or the ones that are nearby, it's a nice little touch that is very much appreciated. Pretty much the only ones that don't are normal types, but that's just because normal doesn't work super effectively against anything, but you're also not really seeing that many fighting types. And technically they do give you Rock Smash, so if you did teach that to a normal type, now you've got a normal type with a super effective move against other normal types. So you at least have that. Expect to see that come up a lot whenever we do Gen 3, as I will be using a normal type on my team. But I won't tell you what that is. That would spoil the fun. See what I mean, though, about it seems like running makes you run into encounters? I feel like it is, honestly, a true thing here. I don't know what the algorithm for it is in particular, but it feels like it's true. But I'm just trying to get to the staircase to get out of here. Oh, this is a super effective hidden power. I better get rid of you. Nice little level there. There's been many, many theories over the years about what specifically adds or takes away friendship from a Pokemon, and some people think having a Pokemon at low level reduces that friendship, and that healing that Pokemon will add to that friendship. Now, it is true that having a Pokemon faint will make it lose points of friendship with you, so you do want to avoid that, but it gaining or losing health is not part of that system, so you don't have to worry about that, thankfully. And I know we are at the ladder, but we can get him up one more, or get her to one more level before we leave. Trying to balance a reasonable amount of grinding here, but also not just staying in one place for forever, you know? Hopefully that will be enough. It might be just shy. Nope, we're good. Yeah, sadly no bite yet, but we're getting close. We're getting pretty close. Alright. let's do a quick... Oh, right, it moved us over here. I was like, how did I end up over here? Burns Research Center. Let's skip that for the time being. That'll take us back to where we were. Can we get down through here? No. Ah, we probably have to go through that cave back there. There we go. Of course, when you leave and re-enter any area, quote-unquote, we're still technically in the area, but when you leave a screen and reset, all of the rocks will, of course, go back to where they were. So you could technically just do this infinitely in hopes of finding more items like that. And because I don't want to run into another high-level Geodude, I think I'm going to take that as an omen to quit while I'm ahead, and I will decide to quit while I'm ahead. Yeah, there's nothing I could do there as I don't have Surf. I think one of these might have something on it. Yeah, Great Ball. Okay, cool. That probably won't get much use, but I'll take it. In case of shiny emergencies, it might come in handy. I don't think these guys have anything. Yeah. I'm sure if I'd caught some unknown, or maybe caught all of them, then potentially they'd have something, but I'm not gonna do that. Definitely not right now, anyway. That would be something where your time would be much better spent once you have a lot of money to use on Pokeballs. But while you could do it at the time of doing that, it'd be a waste of money, so I'm not going to worry about it. So yeah, if you wanted to skip the runs of Alph, there you go. Just south of the Pokemon Mart, and you're just back in Violet City. Just go back in here and heal. This was the guy right here. I trade berry for shard. If you bring me some shards, I'll give you 3 berries. I'm not going to do that, just in case that there's something better later on. I don't want to waste those. It's probably a citrus berry, I would guess, as that's yellow, but I don't know for sure. Let's see. Oh, good guess. Citrus is one of the ones you can get. So yeah, Violet City, you've got 3 different options for each of the shard colors you change, so you've got a total of 12 here. For blue, you can get Chesto or an Wiki Berry. For green, you can get Roust, Lum, or a Guave Berry. For red, you can get Cherry Pecha or Lepa Berry. And for yellow, you can get Aspear, Citrus, or Ipapa Berries. And this is the case with the other guy that you can find in Fuchsia City. He just gives you potentially different ones. So for blue shard, Bluck, Kelpsian, Cornberry. For green, Weepear, Hondu, and Durin Berry. For red, Prism or Persimberry, Raspberry, and Pomegberry. And for yellow, Pinap, Greppa, and Nommelberry. So all options if you are interested. Looks like they're not used for anything else, so I might actually take him up on doing that. We'll make him a happy little goober. Oh, and it gives you 3 berries. I thought I only gave you 1. I give you berries. Oh, so you give me all 3. Okay, that's cool. Well, that's actually much better, because then that means you don't have to take like a random chance and get the wrong one. Oh, and you get the full set. Oh, I had it backwards. I thought you had to give him 3 to get 1 berry, but no, you give him 1 shard and get the full set of 3 berries. So, yeah, take them all, dude. Have a great time with those shards. I don't know what you need them for, but maybe you need some yellow shingles to build a roof somewhere. But you have a great old time. Alright, let's get out of here and go back to the route that we were on. Route 32 and heading south. Here's your sort of marker where if you try to just leave Violet City before beating the gym, they're going to be like, hey, you need to go back and beat the gym. But if you have, you'll get the Miracle Seed, which will be an item you can give to your Pokemon to slightly raise the power of Grass-type moves. So if you picked Chikorita or have another Grass-type like Bellsprout, that might be something you want to give to your Grass-type. As I don't have one, obviously I will not be giving one to either of the team that I'm using. And now, after being able to soundly defeat those unknowns, we are back to the unfortunate spot of needing to switch Zubat out every fight, as it only has, at least for stuff like Rattata, one move that it can use against it, which is Leech Life, which is not going to be very good. It will be much easier to just burn it alive in one hit with Ember and move on. He is also sending out a Zubat. Well, the good news is, at the very least, even though my Zubat is not great, it will almost assuredly be higher level than his. And sure enough, it was. Good, Supersonic Mists, and we'll burn him alive. It'll be interesting to see, like, the development of my teams over the course of playing all these, and to see, like, which ones will be the most controversial picks. I wonder if Zubat would consider to be a controversial choice. Maybe, like, an out-of-character choice, given how much, you know, they're typically known for being hated because you keep running into them in the caves. Which, while true, I'd argue you kind of run into Geodude in the caves more in this game than you do Zubat. That sounds weird to say, but it feels like, on average, you run into the Geodudes more. And down goes Bellsprout. So close to level, yet so far. But we got a Repel for our efforts. A bit odd that a Pokemon was standing right next to it, but I guess it was in a little spray can and it hadn't been used. It's been dropped somewhere. Switch out again. It's not very effective. Oh no. Well, I guess you'll just have to have a little nap then. You're just gonna have to, yeah, go do a little eep. +3 in attack, very nice. You'll find on this route a couple times where the path will split like that, and usually one path will be more wild encounters than trainers, and one will be more trainers than wild encounters. I recommend ultimately probably taking both. The upcoming gym, I think personally, is a little bit easier than the first one, but of course that only is if you're keeping up with what level you should be at. They tend to send out their strongest teammate first, and they're a little tough to get through, but if you can get through that first one, the remaining two are pathetically easy. This is another, yep. I want to hear about everything you've seen. I'll make the same joke that I did in the verses and say, well, the first place I've been to is your mom's house. Because that's a mature joke to make. Also, how's it going, Tropic? Welcome to a very chill stream in which I am doing my second round of HeartGold here. We're doing a versus run between HeartGold and SoulSilver, but it is just me today as I switch out of my Zubat. But it's just me today, as in order to be able to record all the screens at the same time, I'm playing on emulation and my co-commentator Icarus is playing on actual hardware. So to be able to fight proper, I need to be able to do a second run on actual hardware, which is what this run is. But we're not too terribly far in. We're between gyms 1 and 2 right now. Now we've got a very, very small hill of trainers here that I'm going to have a tight disadvantage to. as Zubat has not quite yet learned Bite. It's pretty close, but not quite there yet. It'll get there, though. Use Bubble. Wow, that's really sad. That only did 2 damage with super effectiveness. Yikes. Let's see how Ember does. Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, it's been a nice little afternoon of Pokemon. Been nice and chill. The Versus was, I wouldn't say more high energy or anything, but it took a while to get started. We were planning on starting at 7, and because I know Icarus is usually late, I told her 6:30, and then I think we ended up starting about 7:40-ish? So, I planned with a 30-minute buffer, and was still... I needed double that and a little bit more, I guess. Oops. But thankfully I was able to start right on time here. And also ordered a headphone jack so we can hear the audio. On the other one we were just listening to my emulator version, but now you're actually hearing the sound from the actual hardware as well. It's a bit of a shame that I can't hear it personally, but that's totally fine, because I got to listen to it whenever I was playing last night, so it works out. Oh good, the obligatory all Magikarp trainer. No items, final destination. I think, yeah, this one's got Tackle for what little that's worth. Does Leech Life do any more? Probably not. I will spare you the indignity of watching the world's slowest fight occur here, and just quick attack this thing right out of the game. Let's be honest, nobody wants to watch Magikarp use Splash for like 15 turns in a row. The full experience would have been nice, but it's not sit through that a million times nice. Somehow I think I'll live without it. Man, that Magikarp there is not a thought behind those eyes. Like, not a one. Yeah, I'll keep the chat window as it is. Yeah, maybe we'll leave it like that. There we go. Zoom it in, or zoom it out a little bit. Oh, you flinched. Very nice. I'll just take that last little bit of life. Is level 12 the Bite level? Do I get Bite now? Nope, not yet. That's true. I will give them that. If nothing else, these men are dedicated. They are dedicated to just catching Magikarp, and that's it. And the funny thing is, it's entirely believable that they just, like, chucked a Pokeball at it full health and caught it, because I did that with a Paris in the other run last night in Versus. I just did not have anything at that point in time that was low enough level to be able to attack it without immediately defeating it. So I just said, you know what, we'll just chuck a Pokeball at it, see what happens. And it worked. Didn't have to drop its health, didn't have to even inflict a status ailment on it, just threw a regular Pokeball and got it. Without Bite, I'm not quite as confident that Zubat can beat a Goldeen right now, so we'll switch out here. Oh no, not my defense. How could you do such a thing? Oh no, weakening Fire's power, which I wasn't using. How could you do such a thing? I'll give you that. At least you weakened, like, a move that I had. Most of the time that gets used, it's like, oh, we weakened Electricity's power, and it's like, well, last I checked, Vaporeon's not an electric type, so not sure what we were planning there. He tried to rush things. Oh yeah, he was probably like that guy in Gen 3. He was probably trying to rush it because he had to go to the bathroom. Like that guy in Dewford, where he's sitting there and he's like, I want to go and use the bathroom, but also, what if something catches on my fishing line while I'm in the bathroom? That guy's just so hilarious. Found some good Pokemon in the grass. I remember this because we joked about this. Found some good Pokemon. He did find some, but apparently he only caught one. So, whatever those amazing Pokemon were, I guess they were too powerful for, whatever allowance money his mom gave him to buy the Pokeballs, and they got away. It happens, little guy. It happens. I like to think he tried to catch one of the roaming legendaries and failed. Which, in his defense, if you're not prepped for those, anyone would fail. But nope, just a little whooper. Shucks, I thought I could win. To be fair, you're not the worst trainer on this route by any stretch of the imagination, dude. Don't beat yourself up too much. Yahoo! It's Friday! I'm Frida Friday. Nice to meet you. Here's a poison barb for you. Oh, nice. Yeah, I forget that's another thing this game does, is depending on what day of the week it is, you can sometimes find people that are only there on certain days. Like that one is only here on Friday. But as shown there, that will be a hold item you can give to increase your poison type moves. I might give that to Zubat later, but for the time being it has no poison moves, so therefore there's no need to give it that poison barb. So I'll just pass on that for now. Speaking of items I can get that I probably won't use, do you feel like you wanted to try fishing? Would you like one of my rods? Phrasing, first of all. When you want to go fishing, face the water and use the rod first, then concentrate and look closely at the water. Exclamation mark appears when a Pokemon has taken a bite. Yeah, but since it's the old rod, the only thing it's going to catch is Magikarp, so I'm not too terribly fussed about that. Somehow I think I'll manage with that. I do remember where you get the good rod, but it's not for a while. It'll be basically right when it's time for me to use it to catch the HM user that I'm going to use for Surf and several other things. I did find one, thankfully, that can use 4 different HMs and 4 of its move slots, so that's good. Alright, who's the last trainer before we're getting in the cave? Oh, it's Peter. Can't do a good Lewis, but that's also probably because I did a lot of streaming last night and also today, so voice is a little bit shot, but it'll be fine. Old Pidge. Oh, can you actually catch more than Magikarp? I'm gonna have to give that a try then, but ultimately it won't matter. In the case of what I'm catching, I don't really have any water types that I'm planning on using on my team for what I'm planning on showing for using for my team, at least. Have to keep some of them hidden so that Icarus doesn't know what she'll be going up against, which is why I'm only showing the first 3 for now. Maybe I'll put the others on screen once I get the first 3 fully evolved or something like that. Which makes sense. It theoretically shouldn't take too long. The third one will take the longest amount of time, but that's only because really it's the last one that we'll be getting of the 3. I feel like we'll probably get Crobat and Typhlosion at relatively the same time. I'm going to try to be better about keeping on top of Zubat's level, unlike I was in my practice run, where I really did not do that as well as I should have. I think I had only just gotten it to Golbat. Probably around Gym 6. Like, it was very low leveled. I should have been working on it more, but that was my own mistake. I put too much time into working on Quilava. And I wouldn't say paid the price for it necessarily, but I definitely should have balanced my team better for sure. It is kind of fun to just take one Pokemon and run through the whole game, though I know, like, Blaziken in particular in Gen 3 can do that pretty well. Because you can get, you know, Sky Uppercut, Blaze Kick. You can give it a pretty good combination of moves just to sweep the Elite Four without too much difficulty. Union Cave. We'll see how things go in here. This might be one that I run from encounters a tiny bit. So, like, the wild encounters, for the record. Solely because they're not really advantageous to my team's typing here. And there are a fair few trainers, so... The gap between levels between Violet City and the upcoming city is honestly pretty small, so you don't need to gain too many levels here. If you only gain, like, maybe 5, that should still be plenty. You should be more than okay. Oh no, not my defense, and now it doesn't matter. No Vulpix for you, and I think technically no Vulpix for me unless I trade it, because I think that's... Pretty sure that's a version exclusive for SoulSilver. I don't remember if I get the Arcanine line or if I get the Ninetales line. I think I get the Arcanine one, but I don't remember for sure. But, of course, you could trade it from the other file, or there's probably potentially somewhere you could get it from a trainer. Got Rock Tomb, which I probably will not use. That's one of the other big types that I don't use often is rock. I use ground a fair bit, and I know there's often a mix, and you'll find a lot of rock and grounds. Like Geodude, for example. I don't know, rock's just kind of an one for me. Too bad, it's smelling the scents of this right. Yeah, it's in a cave, so he's probably happy. Probably enjoying his little self here. It's a little Sandshrew. Oh, look at him. He's such a good little boy. I want to catch one. I'm going to try to get him. What's your favorite Ooh, gosh, that's tough. Oh, gosh. As a whole, what do I use a lot of? Like, instinct is like, oh, probably dragon. I use a fair few dragons. I mean, I try to keep my team very, well, varied. So I use a fair bit on every team. Ones that I frequently come back to, Dragon, Fire, Electricity, a lot of the special sweeping stuff. Dragon, Fire, Electricity, Psychic. In terms of stuff that doesn't fall in that category, probably either Water or Dark. If I had to pick one, probably... One I find consistently using is Fire, so I would say Fire, even though it's probably Dragon is what I use more consistently, so it might be Dragon. But even saying that, like, my favorite Pokemon of all time is Normal, so really anybody's up for game. Anybody's fair grabs on that. I do have a list somewhere. Let me see if I can find it, too, while the little cutscene is playing here. Hopefully this won't close any windows. Yeah, it's not going to close any windows. Okay, cool. At one point in time, I did have... Oh, gosh, an Onix. Okay, well, let's switch here. And surely I do have it somewhere, because if I took the time to go write it all out, or put it in the little thing, surely I wouldn't have gotten rid of it that quickly. So it's probably in here somewhere. Just looking through my files of, like, meme images and whatnot that I keep in here, but I did have at one point a list of every single favorite Pokemon based on type. So, like, favorite normal, favorite grass, favorite water, favorite, you know, dragon, all of those. So I'm willing to bet if I looked at, like, a list of all my favorites specifically, I might have a better idea. But the question is, did I save that picture? I'm bad about actually organizing all my stuff, so I'm just, like, literally flipping through a bunch of things here. Hey, there's Bite. I could have sworn it was at an even-numbered level, but I guess not. You're beaten big time. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to let me get Bite on my Zubat. That is very much appreciated. I'm going to keep going through this very quickly, see if I can find that picture. Watch it just not be in here at all. Oh, nope, there it is. Alright, now that I'm actually, like, looking at all the types at the same time in front of me. Yeah, it's probably Fire, Water, or Psychic, honestly. If I'm thinking of just, like, volume of favorite types. Like, Grass, there's a few, but not many. There's a fair few Fire and Water. There's a couple Normals, but not too many. There's a decent amount of Electrics, but I don't think as many as Fire and Water. Good amount of Psychics. Good amount of Fightings, but not as many as Fire, Water, or Psychic. Not many Rocks. A few Grounds, not many. A few Flyers, not many. Very few Bugs. Very few Poison. A few Darks, but not many. Fair few Ghosts, so it could be Ghost. Not many Ice. Not many Steel, fair few Dragon, and a fair few, or not very many Fairy. I looked at Gardevoir and was like, oh, Psychic, but then I realized I'd already said Psychic, so... Oh, this is a trainer battle. That explains why it was level 4. Let's try out Bite. We'll see how it does. Granted, this guy's only level 4, so... Yeah, I wasn't expecting anything too terribly impressive. Yeah, it's probably Dragon or Water, if I'm narrowing it down to 2, now that I'm looking at it. Probably Dragon or Water would be my guess. In terms of what I, like, use more frequently throughout the adventure, it's probably Water over Dragon, only because typically you're going to be able to find Water Pokemon faster than Dragon. Usually they're kind of locked away in a hard-to-find spot, potentially with a low encounter rate. So you get more opportunity to use Water types. And not counting my #1 favorite Pokemon, my #2 is a Water type. So it makes sense that it would be likely Water. Critical hit. And another Bite will send him home. Send him with all of his other brethren on the ground, all the other rocks. Well, the good news is, now that we have Bite, and I'm actually going to go into my team composition here and switch my moves around so I don't have to keep flicking to the bottom right every single time. I'll put Supersonic at the bottom, because there's not much chance of me using that. When it gets confused right later on, that might be a possibility, but with a 55 accuracy, is probably not going to happen. Namely, Water and Bug. That's kind of an interesting combination. I think it's a lot of the time that just Bug conveniently also happens to not gel with my team as a whole. Like, anything it would be good against is already covered by something else, so... Because even though I don't use a lot of Dark types, I tend to keep Bite on at least 2 Pokemon, so like that covers the Psychics, that type of thing. I use Ghost a fair bit, so of course that will cover Psychic as well. So I think it's just they don't synergize as well often with what I'm using. Because I think Steel probably, for me, runs into the exact same problem, is it just doesn't synergize with my team that well very often. I need to get better about that for sure. Because there's one Steel type in particular I use pretty frequently, and I've also used a Magnemite all the way through Magnezone before. I found one in Sun and Moon that was a shiny Magnemite, so I was like, well, I don't usually use shinies. I catch them, but I don't use them. So I used that one, and it did pretty well, so... It's one of those types that I gotta get better about using, for sure. Is there anything over here? There's not gonna be anything over here, is there? I'm just gonna have walked all this way for nothing. Well, I mean, I got to walk over here for a little sand tree. Look at him. What a cute little guy. I feel bad that I've got to kill you for experience. He is one of my more favorite ground types. He's just so adorable. Much like in the YouTube shorts of what your favorite Pokemon says about you, which he's done many parts of, the person that does that, he falls into that category of Pokemon that you would overthrow a small to medium-sized nation for me. As does Spheal. I think Spheal was on his list. I was like, yep, that makes sense. So not Slowpoke. Oh, that's unfortunate. Right as I get Bite, now I've got an experience sponge for me. No, I am going to have to... Well, no, you know what? I can actually just both literally and figuratively bite the bullet on this. So just fall asleep. And wake right back up. I do remember there being an awakening at the end of this cave, and after all, what's the point of buying them if you're not going to use them? So now we don't have to split that experience. Zubat gets to hog it all to herself. Very nice. That's a dead end for the time being. That was also a dead end for the time being. Technically, you could go around it with Surf, but yep, there's the awakening right there. And there we go. All done. Out of the cave and into the rain. The Pink Apricorn. Which, when we played during nighttime, definitely looked purple and not pink, but it's fine. Yeah, the more I think about it, too, maybe in later gens, I mean, I'm kind of doing it with this team here, honestly, knowing what my full team is down the line. I'm kind of using an unconventional team from what I typically use. Like, the team I would have lined up for Gen 3 in my head, granted, is one that I would always use because it's reliable, but it would also be, like, I would want it to be accurate to a team I would actually pick, same as I would here. So, like, thinking about that, like, it's definitely got, like, a very hard-hitting team. Both physically and specially. It's not focused on the defensive side as much as it is the offensive side. Whereas this team, at least in some of the later picks, will definitely be a little bit more defensive-based. Future Pokemon. I won't switch until you send out that Machop, and then I will switch because I'm not about to let my Zubat get killed. Oh, and probably an obvious statement of, like, all the specific rules we have for doing the verses of, like, not doing repeats from what you played for previous games, in particular for me since I played these before, of only picking from the gen we're playing, in this case Gen 2. No legendaries is obviously on that as well, so no Ho-Oh, no Lugia, no Entei Suicune or Raikou, or Raikou. Not that I would have used those anyway. I'm not really the type to use legendaries in terms of, like, doing a versus against friends. I don't know. I like collecting them, but like actually using them, not really. Even though Lugia is one of my favorites, it's probably my second favorite legendary behind Mewtwo. And here we are, Azalea Town, just in time to witness some violence. That's always a plus. Just beat it. No one wants to be defeated. I know I'm going to jinx it by saying it, but I'm going to jinx it anyway. I'm surprised that my mom has not called me to tell me that she bought an item with my money. Because normally she's done it like at least 4 times by this point. And she's not done it at all this playthrough. Even though I did tell her, like, hey, save my money, so... I mean, we've been seeing it in every fight of, like, hey, we did this thing, sent some to mom, so... we know it's getting sent over there. There's a white one. Alright, before we tackle the gym, there's a fair few things that we have to do. Cutting off Slowpoke. I mean, if that's not a, like, alternate version of people killing elephants or, like, leaving them to die, essentially, for their tusks, I don't know what is. It's a sad, sad day that, like, actual wildlife preservations and stuff like that, and people that are trying to keep them alive, are carefully removing them, specifically so that poachers don't actually kill them, like... They don't want to, but that's the whole reason. It's, you know, like, why would you try to rob a mansion if you knew the mansion was empty? So we'll just get rid of everything in the mansion type of thing. The only difference is it's a living creature, which makes it 80 times more sad. Speaking of sad, let's go beat up Team Rocket's very sorry excuse for teams. Let's see what they got. Some old coot yelled at me, startled me so much I fell down here. You both fell down the well, and, like, you didn't take any real damage from it. Did you fall on him? Is that why? Did he cushion the blow? Did his old man back save you from just getting completely destroyed by that fall onto solid rock? Oh, the boy's getting pumped. He's so pumped, and now he will be taking a nap. But it's fine. It's fine and everyone's fine. It's a running joke between friends. One of my mom's friends is... Let's just say when anything at all ever happens bad, and when we go through the stages of grief, she likes to stay in denial always, forever, which means that everything is fine and everyone's fine, and everyone will always be fine, and nothing will ever be wrong. Alright, what do we got in here? I'm gonna presume the usual. Yeah, the usual. Zubats, Geodudes, and like maybe one other thing, potentially. Became confused. Oh, great. I can't wait to stand here smacking myself in the face over and over, waiting for that to go away. There we go. In hindsight, it probably wasn't worth fighting that Zubat, but it's fine. Stop taking Slowpoke tails. What? You want us to obey a direct order from Executive Proton? Rest in peace, for Professor Proton. Rest in peace. For those who don't know, that's like a fictional character within a fictional show. It's a fictional TV show in Young Sheldon, which I never watched, but they reference it in Big Bang Theory as well. But the actor for Professor Proton passed away, at least at the time of this, like pretty recently, like within the last couple days, so... I don't know. Young Sheldon was okay. I only like watched little clips, and everything I watched was of the non-main characters, basically, like not of Sheldon, because he was the most annoying character in the show. other than his mom, oddly enough. I preferred his dad or both of his siblings. But even with Big Bang Theory, like, it started out kind of funny in some aspects because, you know, it was like references to pop culture and geeky stuff at the time. And then it was like, let's not focus on any of that and just have it be all about relationships. And I'm like, I could be watching a million other shows that also do this. Why would I want to watch another? I'm good. I'm trying to think like the last thing I genuinely watched on TV, like as it was occurring, or even like a streaming service. And I couldn't tell you what it was. Oh, right. I almost forgot. There is a super potion right there. Just, I don't know why I laughed at that time, just seeing that Zubat's like stupid little face pop up of just like, hi, it's me. Like, you know, he's thrilled. He's thrilled to come get into a fight with you. Probably don't need it, but why run the risk? And we're getting pretty close to the point now where regular potions just aren't going to do the job. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting pretty close. They've kind of reached the point of use them outside of battle if you have them. If you run out, don't buy more, just stick to the super ones. So probably once that set of potions is gone, I think that will be it unless we just find another one randomly on the ground. Oh, he flinched. Nice. Let's see if we can get our health back to full here. There we go. And now it's a mirror match. Except not really, because that thing's like almost half my level. I don't know why I used Astonish. I should have done this. Yeah, you keep doing that, buddy. I'm proud of you. Wow, that did not do anything to his health. I mean, granted, it wasn't doing anything to mine, but I figured with having a 7-level difference, it would do a tiny bit more than that. Not that Leech Life was ever known for being the be-all, end-all best move for bug types. You know, I don't think I've ever come back to this cave and pushed that strength boulder that was to the left of Proton there. Alright, let's see the biggest, scariest... Yeah, his Zubat is weaker than the Grunt that we just fought. That sounds about right. Boy, just you wait. The minute that I don't get hurt by my confusion and I actually get the turn to do something, you're toast. Luckily, a 50% chance will activate way too many times in a row. There we go. Coughing. Nah, he's still confused, and it's been a little bit since we pulled out Wild, so I'll switch to him. Ever since we got Bite, it's just constantly been Zubat, but it's also been trying to let Zubat catch up, so that's part of the reason why. The other part of the reason why is the upcoming gym is going to be one where Wild can excel, as he'll be strong against that type, so... Did you come here thinking you could mess with their plans? No, I came in here knowing I could mess with your plans. Now get out of here. Didn't see it coming. Yeah, you never see it coming. Team Rocket's like little kids. They go for the fake throw every time. Hello. My back's better too. After that fall you took down the well, you recovered pretty quick, honestly. I could have, like, paralyzed you from the neck down, dude. Alright, so for our troubles, we get a fastball. And as mentioned, I usually start with the green ones, as they'll turn into ones that make your Pokemon more friendly. Of course, it's a bit late for Zubat, as we've already caught it in a normal Pokeball and had it for a while. And even then, by the 24-hour mark, like, it would probably be roughly around the same spot, so no big deal. Let's get that poison off. I don't need that. We hope to see you again. Or please come back anytime. It varies between game to game. I feel like just by the time that I get used to seeing one thing, it changes into something else. Alright, since I've given Zubat a lot of time in the sun, let's switch it up and let Wild just completely solo the gym here. There's no doubt in my mind that he will be able to do it. Nothing over there. Couldn't remember if there was a trainer on the left or not, but it looks like there wasn't. Imagine finding out that, like, this gym puzzle with the weird spider things is what your tax dollars are going to, as, like, a resident of this town. One could only hope it wasn't that much, and most of this was just, like, either man-made or Pokemon helped create it or something. But yep, it's a gym full of buggos. Which of course means that if you chose a fire-type starter like I did, you're in a pretty good position going forward. In fact, I don't think at this point you could have a different fire type, could you? I'm pretty sure you can't. Not counting, like, if you traded with somebody, obviously. You can still do that, but... Usually it's pretty clear where the fire types are located. They're usually at, like, anything that's volcano related, even remotely. That's usually where you'll find them. Good catcher, Benny. Benny, why have you not evolved that Weedle into a Kakuna yet? Of course, the first guy had a Caterpie and a Weedle that should have evolved twice each. It's like that Apollo Justice line of, but we both already cleaned the toilet. Twice. Each. Such a dumb one. Like, what? How could you be that bored to clean the toilet, like, between the three of you 6 times in, like, 3 hours? Like, either whatever you're eating, you need to stop eating, or you are literally bored out of your skulls. Hey, there's a fully evolved bug. Hi, Beedrill. How's it going? Hit 4 times. Oh, only 4? I was expecting 5. I'm disappointed in you. Just evolving isn't enough. No, but it gave me more experience, and for that I will be forever grateful. I think he's the only guy that's got a fully evolved Pokemon in here, including the gym leader. Potus. Oh, nice. Good old Potus. Enjoy your 4x weakness. Bye. Away he goes. He will be missed by all. Rest in peace, Paris. Rest in Paris. There we go. Hi. Are you challenging the leader? No way. If you insist, we'll be your opponents. I didn't insist. You talked to me. But, well, we're here now, so... Send out a ladybug and a spider. That's nice. Since this is only level 10, I'm willing to bet we can probably take him down with one attack. We don't need to hit him with two different things here. And there they go. Like I said, the jump in difficulty here, especially if you're using Cyndaquil, is not very big. It will probably feel about the same difficulty that the Flying Gym did. Unless you just did not fight any trainers or any wild encounters on your way here. Which is possible, I think, in most cases. Maybe not completely possible, but there's a fair few trainers you could have skipped, and of course you could have skipped all the fights in the wild, so... yeah. Just for the sake of saying that I prepared for this fully. Sure. We're still barely at the point where 9 HP might actually be the difference between a Pokemon surviving and a Pokemon getting knocked out. Technically, that's always the case, as long as their HP is higher than 9, but... That way when I lose to a trainer that I said was easy, I've got no excuse, right? It's actually going to take 3 embers to get rid of you. Oh, no, never mind. Critical hit. My mistake. I was wrong. Well, out goes his Scyther, which was, in my opinion, his strongest Pokemon of the 3. If you can get past that Scyther, you're pretty much golden. Flame Wheel. Make it forget a move? Yes, I will be swapping out Leer for Flame Wheel. Sorry about that. Had to mute for a second. I got a very bad leg cramp in my left leg there for a second. Aw, Super Potion. Man, you're only the second gym. Have a little bit more respect for yourself than that. I say that, like, the first gym didn't use a potion, but he did use a move that acted as if it were a potion, so... Bug Pokemon are tough. Well, maybe not a Kakuna, but... Especially not if it's just going to get stun-locked by Bite. Oh, no, it actually did get to do something. There we go. You got 2 Poison Stings off. There you go. It did do a thing. And Zubat got a level as well, and actually got to deliver the killing blow, and more importantly, got wing attack. Very nice. I mean, honestly, both Leech Life and Supersonic are going to go at some point or the other, but for now I'm going to get rid of Supersonic, because at least Leech Life I've once in a blue moon been using. I've not been using Supersonic at all due to its low accuracy. And probably once Confuse Ray pops up, that Leech Life will be going away, would be my guess. Well, despite it not being too terribly difficult of a gym, we did pick up some new moves, so that's good. We got Flame Wheel and Wing Attack, which are both pretty solid. We can use Cut outside of battle, and anything that is level 30 or higher in a trade will now obey us. Or, level 30 and lower, not level 30 and higher. That would be nice, but unfortunately, no. I should put that blue switch back on. Whoops. There we go. And away we go, but before we leave town, there is still one other thing we need to do, besides heal. Because just because we have the ability to use Cut does not mean we have it, so we should go pick that up. Oh, right, the Sandshrews. I was looking at the Pokeballs and I'm like, I know it doesn't count the eggs, so what's the fifth one that I have? I forgot I picked him up. I got a little boy. I don't think you have to go into this house technically and talk to this guy, but I'm going to anyway. Slowpoke have returned, but my Farfetch'd haven't come back. My apprentice has gone to look for them in the LX Forest. It's been ages now. Where in the world is that lazy guy? Well, maybe he just needed some time to listen to some music. You don't know, man. Oh, hi, Silver. You beat them? Quit lying. Are you serious? Let's see how good you are. That boy need a haircut, man. Wow. Got like a mullet thing going on worse than I do whenever I don't need, or whenever I haven't got my haircut in a while when I need to. Well, let's try out our new little weapon here. Yeah, I'd say that works pretty well. At the prospect of not risking Zubat too much out of the gate, I'll let him send out Croconaw here. Yeah, keep using Scary Face. Do that for like 5 turns. Just let me get a gigantic lead that you will not be able to surmount, because I'll keep using Quick Attack, so I'll always get the priority over you. Oh, he finally wisened up. Well, you do know how I feel about critical hits. I feel like when an enemy gets a critical hit, that means that you have full range to just heal it right back to where it was. Use Rage, which is a bit rare to see the AI use that. That's one of those, like, weak moves that if you keep using it over and over, it will do more and more damage, but I feel like if he was planning on using that, he probably should have opened with it and just kept using it. I'll just let Wild steamroll this team. He earned it. You got a lot of nerve coming here. You got a lot of nerve picking a fight with me, boy. I don't know what you think you're doing. See, you didn't even get to have your line of, like, I can't be defeated by this guy. You just did. Didn't even get the opportunity to say I can't think this is going to happen. Yeah. Alright. Now that we've done that, let's go back and heal. I'd forgotten about that rival fight, but it has been taken care of. Not that going through the forest is too terribly difficult, it's just got a little puzzle in there. Mostly just oddish out there, so if you've got Pokemon that are strong against grass, you should be fine. There it is. Ilex Forest ahead, but I've got a VR meetup that's coming up pretty soon here in about 15 minutes, so now it seems like a pretty good time to stop. Thank you all for watching. I might do more of this tomorrow. We'll kind of play it by ear of what I'm going to do this one. It will mostly just be either I need to catch up on this file or I felt like playing this file type of thing, so we'll be seeing it off and on for sure. I'm going to save again because I don't trust myself. 2 badges and 5 in the Pokedex. Wow. That is a low number if ever I've seen one. But yeah, do keep an eye out for this one. I don't have a specific schedule set in mind for it, of course, but I will be streaming this one, and if you're watching this on YouTube on the main channel, you now know that I'll be streaming it, but you've been seeing it get cut into sections. This is actually one that's not going to go on my typical archive page, as I kind of wanted this to be a not full playthrough, but I hadn't done anything on the DS, so it was kind of cool to get the opportunity to show off the capture board, so this is the end of the first play session if you are watching. In the meantime, hopefully you all have a good Friday, or potentially Saturday if it's late enough in the day, or if you're watching in the VOD, who knows what day and time it is. Only you can really tell. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time when we will head into the forest, or if you're going to be watching a different stream, it will either be... At some point I'll get back to Paper Mario Thousand Year Doors post-game, I just haven't had the urge to play it. More of this, or more of Pokemon Versus, and who knows, I might just do another kind of relaxed game in there at some point. Till then, guys, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.